Hello everyone and welcome to a really special episode of Willow Talk. Now obviously later this year, myself, Adam Peacock and also Brad Haddin, Elisa Healy will bring everything to you when it comes to the Men's Ashes series when England visit Australia with the whole cricketing world watching. But in the lead up to that, we're going to have the odd episode that will be an outlier. It's going to be called English Willow Talk, hence the special nature of this podcast. And our first episode is an absolute beauty. Graeme Swann, former spinner and elite storyteller, sat down with myself and Hads to talk about his great memories and what he's looking forward to with this impending Ashes series. Graeme Swann, 18 Ashes matches, 62 wickets at an average of 40. That's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Because you're holding up an end for a lot of it, successfully so.
It was probably about 25 before my last three games, to be fair.
We're going to get to that. We're going to definitely get to that. But firstly, just to open up, I'll go to Hads about Graeme Swann, the opponent in Ashes matches. What was he like?
It was enjoyable, actually. Ashes can get... There's a lot going on the outside. People can take themselves too seriously in those. But yes, it's on when you get in the field. But Swanee was like playing against someone. You knew you were in a contest, but you could have a bit of a laugh and that as well. You could break the mood. But my job was to try to hit every ball he bowled for six. That was my job in the Ashes. We found him the most important player. That's why we probably lost the first three I played against you, because we didn't play Swanee right. We couldn't get through. We allowed the quick bowls, but he was a character of the game, and it was always good fun to come up against him.
What about yourself, Graeme? So when you're starting cricket, is it always the goal, obviously, to play for England, but an eye on taking on Australia? What were your first memories of getting drawn into Ashes cricket?
Yeah, so as a kid growing up, I just wanted to get Alan Border out to win the Ashes. I didn't do my maths very well. I wasn't very clever. I didn't realise I'd be 60 by the time I could play for England.
You might have had a chance of getting him then, actually.
But because I had a big brother as well, who he got to choose first, I would have to be Australia in the back garden. So it was always the Ashes, and I'd be Bruce Reid and Merv Hughes, because we had to bowl one over left arm and everything. I'm a very good left arm bowler, believe it or not, because of Bruce Reid. And we'd play in the garden. And so I grew up desperate playing the Ashes. And I always say this in England, that you get chastised for this, but if you ever, like, say the other series aren't as important, like South Africa, India stuff, everyone goes, oh my God, every test for England should be as important. It simply is not. It's not as big as an Ashes game.
So can you remember Ian Botham taking Australia apart and Merv hooking him about 8 times onto the dog track at the Gabba and things like that in the mid-80s?
87. Well, I wasn't quite old enough, but that was the first. We had a video. So the highlights had come on, half-an-hour highlights every night. And my dad would tape it on the old VHS. And me and my brother would watch it in the morning. And Ian Botham with no helmet, with his big mullet, and Elton John in the crowd, like just ducking and then whacking it. Where is that dog track? When I played at the Gabba, it was like an enormous stadium. I was gutted that the dog track had gone.
Long gone.
But the best thing about that entire winter, and the clip has resurfaced on Instagram recently, is the cameraman at long off taking the catch and then having a drag on his fag and then doing the dragon smoke out of his nose. It's the most iconically Australian thing I've ever seen. It's brilliant.
When did you figure out that you were a chance of playing in an Ashes?
When Duncan Fletcher got sacked.
That's simple.
That was it. I was never going to play for England while he was in charge, but when he went, I'd given up on it. I played my first game for England at the age of about 20. And I really messed up. My first tour was a joke. Phil Tufnell was my mentor. That was off the field and on it. And I didn't do well. And so I thought my copybook was completely marked for life. But then when Duncan went 8 years later, I don't know if he got the sack or he jumped or whatever, but Peter Moores came in, picked Ryan Sidebottom, who was a mate of mine. And as soon as Ryan got picked, who I played county cricket with, I thought, I've got a chance here. And then 12 months later, I was in the England team.
So 2009 was your first Ashes test. It's famous for the fact that we all look at it still and go, how the frickin' hell didn't Australia win that test match, Hads? You were involved. You were one of about, 4 century makers in a 6 for 674 declared, and England hang on.
Oh, at Cardiff.
At Cardiff. Hang on. Like Monty becomes Jeffrey Boycott.
Anderson got 20 not out.
He did. But Monty batted for about 12 overs.
Yeah.
So in that game, in the second innings, when we had to hang on to basically not lose. And the wicket was a pudding, wasn't it? It was so slow by then. There
it
was no
was.
pace. And I remember batting, and we had a short leg, and you had a deep square, and Sid was bowling round the wicket. And I'd just been told, you're not allowed to hook, not allowed to hook. And I'm compulsive. And I'm a tail ender, so I don't know what else to do. And so I was I might as well have been a punch bat. I was standing there and just being thudded. And every time I got hit, they said, you have to get the physio on and waste as much time as you can. And one of them hit me, and it barely tickled me. I mean, it was... And I remember looking around, and Mike Hussey was there, who was my mate, and he went, don't do it, mate. And I went, Physio! And Punts was... I thought he was going to kill someone. And our physio that day was an Aussie guy called Steve McCarg, and his all-time hero was Ricky Ponting. And right near the end of play, like Jimmy tripped over, whatever, got the physio, and it was embarrassing by this stage. I mean, it was blatant sandpaper cheating stuff. By this, it was like running the guy out when he's not trying to run. It was awful.
Mate, I remember that physio. He stood there, the player was over, and he's just like that. He wasn't looking at the England players, just standing at Ponting, and Ponting's giving him all barrels. But he also said at the end, he said, "Do you know you have to bowl fucking 16 overs in the last hour, no matter what?" And he said, you can fucking leave now. And he said, yes, Rick. Poor bastard ran off. I'm so sorry for him.
After the game, so we're in the change room, and Andy was like, don't celebrate. You must not celebrate. We were behind closed doors. We were going, yes! And everyone was happy and having a beer, and looked round. Steve McCarg sat in the corner, ghostly white, staring at the fog. That guy's my fucking hero.
He didn't miss him.
Can you remember that?
I remember it. He didn't go to anyone. He was too scared to take the extra step. And we sort of, as I said before, you have to bowl 16 overs in the last hour, no matter what. So he's running on and off, and punter, he just went, and punter was the one that told him, you can leave now, and just nodded and said, yes, Rick, and he just walked off. But it was
broken.
Mate, Monty lasted.
Were you losing your minds out there
day,
with that last hour?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was one of those, though, that Horitz was bowling. Horitz was a good bowler, I thought, but he was turning it too much almost. So his arm ball would even grip and turn a bit. And Monty and Jimmy couldn't get back on it if it was spinning. And he just couldn't hit the stumps.
No.
So, and as a spinner, I've been in that situation sometimes. You've got to be very clever or very skilled to be able to not make the ball move off the straight. Yeah. And it moved every ball, and they kept missing it.
So you guys are punching the air in the Cardiff dressing rooms. You guys have dominated the game, like a morgue in there, or was it pretty frustrating? Was Ricky throwing things around the dressing room?
Oh, we were frustrated. Yeah, mate. When Anderson and Panesar bat for that long, and it was probably one of the moments where emotions got the better of us and took a lot of energy out of us leading into the series. It was probably a win for England. They were so far behind in the game, and to get out of that with a draw, and you know how important that first test is. But he was. I feel sorry for that physio.
If you're there, Steve, he came when I had my last operation that didn't work. He was the physio who came out with me, and apparently when I woke up, I was so off into space with the drugs they give you in America when you have these operations. Apparently, I was just laughing at him, going, "What the fuck are you doing here, mate?" I was doing my Ricky Bunny. What the fuck are you doing out now?
Not again.
Yeah.
Hey, later in that series, the Oval, Stuart Broad went on a tear. Got here the spell of 12 overs in a game that ended in an English victory by nearly 200 runs. 12 overs, one maiden, 5 for 37, included the wickets of Watson, Hussey, Clark, and one Bradley Haddin.
Not just Bradley Haddin, a beauty to bowl.
Oh, he could talk us through it.
I couldn't feel my hand. I'd have a broken finger. Oh, okay. He was like Anderson. Obviously, has finished his career as the great of the game. Mate, the hardest I used to find was Broad, but Broad would go through moments, and you could see me. He'd do his jump at the top of his mark, do a couple, then you do 4, and you think, oh no, that's one of these spells. And it was good as your face anywhere in the world. He was one of the best at picking moments and when to turn it on and when just to go through the motion.
So he was a big-time player. I always said the best thing you could ever do with Broady is saying you're being dropped. Yeah. This is your last chance, last game ever. Because whenever he got to that stage, and players go through that, and the press, the vultures are circling, he would get 5 wickets without a doubt and bowl like a dream. The time he got 8 for 17 on that damp morning in Trent Bridge, that was when Jimmy wasn't playing. So Broady was suddenly leading the attack for the first time. And I knew he was going to get wickets that morning. It was almost exactly. He did the 4 big jumps and the knee started pumping. And I've never met anyone more inclined to put his trainers on or his flats on when you're in India, second innings. He goes, well, I'm not fucking bowling. It's all you, mate.
He recognised moments so good.
Yeah.
Didn't
He was really good.
What was he like as a teammate around the group, and especially moments like this when things are going really well?
Yeah, I'm very quiet, Broad is. I mean, he came across as really petulant when he bowled and like sort of big and tried to be nasty, but he's so public school and like, hi, how's it going? Umpire, please, could you hold my jumper for me? And so he wasn't intimidating in any way, although he tried to be, which we all found brilliant and hilarious. But off the field, I've always got on very well with Broady because he's a piss taker. And when he scored 100, Broady got 170 in a test match.
Against
Put it that
Pakistan,
way, against
wasn't it?
Pakistan.
Yeah.
In the same game, I got 5 for at Lords. So his first 100 at Lords, or first 100 in all cricket, I think, and my first 5 for... As an Englishman, you want a 5 for at Lords because you get your name on the board in the change room. And that's like the history of English cricket. And it was, I'm not saying this is why we got 5 for and 100, but 4 of the Pakistanis went to prison for match fixing just after that test match.
You know what? Broady should lose that 100.
Well, that's what he said. So we were sat in the change room afterwards, and Giles Clark, the head of English cricket, the most pompous human being on earth, goes, oh, this is a disgrace. This game should be scrapped from the annals of Test history. And Broady just leaned over to me and went, they're not going to take our names off the board, though, are they?
Ads, what was it like at the end of that series? Because this felt like a period of Australian cricket where there was a lot of changes, chopping and changing, because they're looking for solutions. And it was before, the Lyon, Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins era began. So it was in that little period. What was it like after that series, 09? Did you feel
The Argus review?
The Argus review. But how close did you feel, actually, given what happened in the first test in Cardiff? Did you feel like you'd been heavily defeated, or was there the inklings of better things to come?
Well, there was no other way in an Ashes campaign. And we spoke about it before. I remember Haydos saying, he said, yes, you'll play all Test cricket and they're all equal, but you'll be judged on how well you play in an Ashes campaign.
Yeah.
And if you win, lose or draw, and we were on the losing end, you knew something was about to happen. You knew heads were about to roll. At the end of that, Clark took over the captaincy. It's held in such high regard. So you know if you don't aim up in that campaign, when you get back home, there's going to be a review. Someone's going to have to be accountable. And it was actually that black and white. If you win, things are going well.
Yeah.
If not, there's a review and your head's on the chopping block.
And it's the same in both countries. So that one at 2009, that was the closest Ashes.
Yeah.
That was the only one that I thought all the way could have gone either way. 2010 in Australia, after the first test that we managed to draw, there was only one winner there. 2013 at home, we were by far the better team. Yeah. And then 2013 in Australia, we came third. Well, we came fifth in the two Australian races. If it was a horse race, we'd have been put down, basically.
Green screen.
Yeah.
So 2010, let's get to that, when Alastair Cook just couldn't stop scoring runs. Jonathan Trott couldn't stop scoring runs. You couldn't stop celebrating with the fans, but we'll get to that. Up at the Gabba, so that was when Peter Siddle took his hat-trick on his birthday. You faced a double hat-trick ball?
It's just quickly though, this double hat-trick thing you Australians do, it winds me up a treat.
Why?
So so just think about the premise of a double hat-trick. So a second hat-trick starts with the second wicket, obviously, and you get 4 wickets. That would mean 101 is a double 100. Yeah. So please, come on.
So what do you want it to be? 6 wickets in a row, a double hat-trick?
Yeah, that's a double hat-trick.
You're going to be a great coach, thinking these things differently about the game.
Yeah, and you know what? Things that shouldn't annoy you at all.
Yeah.
That really gets me. It really grinds my gears. I've no idea why. Anyway, out of the way.
Continue.
I have never known noise like that at the Gabba when I faced the double hat-trick ball. I'll humour you.
4 in a row, okay.
When I walked out of the Gabba, so the brilliant thing was when Stuart Broad was due to go in, he was still naked in the change room. So he'd been on the toilet, he'd had a shower, and we lost a wicket, and he was just strolling through. And then Matty Pryor got out, and he hadn't realised, and he was like, "Oh my God, oh fuck, it's me." We were literally helping him get padded up, one person on one leg, one on the other, and he walked out. And if there's ever been a definite guaranteed hat-trick ball, that was Broady that day. So he was LB. And thankfully, because I wasn't ready either, because I've been helping him get ready, I think we reviewed the LB. Yeah. So it took a couple of minutes, and it was stone dead. So, but I walked out, and the noise, I've never known noise like that at a cricket ground. I mean, I've been at Edgbaston when it's all football chanting and everything, but it was just And the Gabba's very good. It's sort of enclosed, and all the noise is directed straight at the pitch. And I played what should go down as the greatest forward defence in the world, in the history of world cricket, I think, to keep out that fourth ball that was a nice, good length ball from Sids. But I just remember thinking, thank God he's trying to get 4 wickets in 4 balls, because if he bowls me a bumper here, I'm swinging. And then anything can... Yeah, I would definitely have been caught. Because when you're compulsive on the short ball but not very good at actually playing it, it's a dangerous combo.
Memories of that?
I remember the crowd.
Yeah.
It was on Peter Siddle's birthday, I think, by memory.
Yeah, it was.
And the crowd, and it was even better because we got Pryor and Broad, and because they were two.
They wound you up,
yeah,
didn't they?
They did. And at the end of that series, I remember Pryor calling Siddle out the back. Remember it, walking off at the whacker. He's pointing out the back. We're all fucking laughing. But to get those two was even more special.
So that second innings is extraordinary. It's pretty obvious that the deck flattened out a little. 1 for 517. So at what point did you think, we're in a bit of strife here perhaps, because this is not how we want things to begin? But then Alistair Cook just goes in and plays one of the best knocks you've ever seen, 235 knot.
You know, what I remember the most about that is, as that second inning started, because we'd just bowled, as most bowlers do, they'll just lie down somewhere after 100 overs, 140 overs of watching Mike Hussey make a wicket look very flat when we'd make it look like a snake pit. And myself, Broady, and Jim Jansen all sort of put towels down and lay down next to each other watching the TV in the Gabba dressing room. And then at the end of play, we hadn't lost a wicket. So the next morning, because we're superstitious, let's lie in the same spot. And I lay there for like 15 hours straight, and my back was screwed afterwards. I've got a bad back anyway. Didn't like being on a change room floor, but we couldn't move. And you know, I remember Straussy walking and go, right, we're going to declare and make them bat a bit, to prove a point. And I was like, please don't. No, seriously, like, you've proved a point. Just bat for another half hour. I could barely stand up by this stage.
Yeah.
But if there's ever a way that you could go from being really happy that we've somehow saved this test, that was an incredible effort from those 3 guys batting, to being completely pissed off with life because you've got to go and bowl for 15 overs. That was it.
When did this test series feel like it was going to be pushing uphill, Ads?
Well, it's that the first test is always where you set the scene. You attack the opposition's captain when they come out. Straussy got out, I think, nearly in the first ball.
Yeah.
But when we were so far in front of the game, we just thought, here we go again. We'll knock England over, 200 and something in front. Then England fought back. They dominated the rest of it, threw us out there for a token. You know what? We're not intimidated by you. Yeah. Get out there and have a bat. You thought, hang on a minute. We've got different England cricket team here.
As proven in Adelaide.
Yeah.
So the horror start for Australia. England end up winning by an innings. But 3 for 2 in 13 balls. What the hell was going on in the dressing room at that stage, Hads?
Well, not a lot.
Yeah. Just a lot of people coming in and out.
All I remember from that, the result. But we were trying to hold on, and we didn't do a very good job, obviously. But basically, as soon as we got out, it rained.
It did.
Yeah, it rained. It would have been 0-2 for both teams going into the back end of the series where you're playing in Melbourne and Sydney. But the rain came. It was just one of those series that we just kept missing those moments. And when it came down raining, we just thought, oh, no. It's going to be one of those series.
That first morning, I always remember that. That was when we knew, actually, we can win this Ashes here. Yeah. Because you lose the toss at Adelaide, and even though you're not supposed to, you're supposed to go, it doesn't matter, we're bowling, come on, everyone deep down goes, oh, for fuck's sake. It's a feather bed, they're going to get 600, we're going to have to do the same again. And then Trotty ran out Katic first over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Trotty, possibly the worst fielder. No, it's a bit hard. He's got a very good arm on him, but he's not the man who's going to run you out, put it that way. But there was a bit of a mix-up with Watson, Katic, a direct hit from Trotty, and we've got him around, and then Punter nicked it to me first ball off Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever had this, Hads. You get premonition sometimes. Yeah. You can just see the delivery before it happens, and you know exactly that first ball to Ponting, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I had this premonition I was going to get a catch low to my left. I was almost diving for it before Jimmy had bowled it. It was one of those weird things. And then Clark got nicked off, and Clarkie got a lot of runs against us in previous probably 10 Test matches. So he was the one when he got out. I thought, we're properly quids in here.
Yeah, did you have, of that Australian team of that era, did you have a figurehead that you went after? Or England cricket doesn't think that way? Because Hads always speaks to that sometimes about, you want to take a certain bowler down or you want to get, Cole out, the captain.
I think it's a big difference between our two nations because we don't do it. We never sort of focus on one player. We never have done. I think we should do sometimes, especially when you've got like an Indian team who are all round one huge figure like a Kohli. But no, we didn't. I suppose we were a bit afraid of Ricky Ponting. Everyone was for years because he's got such an awe about him, and he was in charge of that incredible Australian team. Probably everyone was afraid to have a go at him on the field. So when I came,
it started to change that series though. I reckon things started to change. England, was that when Flower took over, and he didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't want to talk to you if you walk past him on the pitch. He wasn't there to be your friend.
He's got the best poker face in the world. Yeah. Everyone's scared of Andy. Everyone thinks he's miserable.
Were you?
No, I've known Andy for years. So the only person who ever didn't like Andy was Kevin, because Andy takes absolutely no bullshit whatsoever, and he's just very straight.
What was the conversation like between those two?
I don't think they spoke much by the end. But
you score runs until you're done. I'm going to drop you.
But Andy was like, I loved Andy to be. He was very, very good as if you delivered on the field. And delivered all the time. So in fitness testing, if your numbers were good, you could basically do what you wanted around that. As long as you're performing on the field and off the field and not making an ass of yourself, Andy will back you up to the hilt. Yeah. If you weren't doing that, he's not an ideal enemy.
Well, that series stands out for England's batting. Obviously, huge totals all throughout the series. You get to the Melbourne Cricket Ground, it's confirmed there. Australia all out 98 in the first dig. England pile on over 500.
That's where the sprinkler come in.
Yet again. Yeah. And this is after Australia levelled the series in Perth with 9 wickets each from Harris and Johnson. Everyone's feeling good about themselves. But skittled for 98 in the first dig. How did that come about and what the hell happened?
That was another one. We all wanted to bat first. All the bowlers did anyway. Yeah. And Strauss goes, oh, no, absolutely. It's going to do a bit first morning. Oh, God's sake. Come on, Strauss. Strauss's ideal game was to bowl first, bowl team out, score big, and then win the game, which is like Stephen Fleming used to at Nottingham. And it works. If you bowl a team out cheaply, you're in complete control. I always preferred the Aussie way of
runs
9 times out of 10, bat first, the other time think about it and bat. As a spinner, I wanted to bowl last all the time. But that was one of those strange mornings. The MCG has got this weird thing that it's so big and there's so many people that when something happens, like I think Watson hit a 4 or Phil Hughes hit a 4 in the first over, and there was no noise whatsoever for like a half a second, and then all of a sudden the noise sort of came from all 4 different directions and almost knocks you off your feet. It's a very weird sort of symphony going on. We dropped about 2 catches in the first couple of overs and then took the first wicket, and then it was just a procession. You know, in cricket when you get on a roll and you know everyone's going to nick it, everyone's going to be out, and it almost seems too easy. It was one of those mornings. It was weird.
This was Ricky Ponting's last test as a captain. Did you get that feeling that something like that was going to happen, or was it not talked about and it just came out from Rick?
Oh, no, it wasn't spoken about because Ricky's got such a high standing in the game. And no matter what country around, always had an aura about him, Ricky Ponting. And I think at that time, when things are starting to happen, Ricky's starting to think about stepping down. You know, then the opposition know, hang on a minute, they've got us here. If they're making a statement like that, Ricky's standing down. From the England point of view, you started to get the feeling that, hang on, they believe now that they can really dominate us here. And that's the feeling you started to get.
We also, because we were reading your press as well, the press had turned on Ricky. Yeah. The press had turned on the Australian team. I always say it's like the crown in Rocky IV. At the start, it's all,
Ivan Drago.
And by the end, it's like, Rocky. They started almost celebrating the fact that Ricky wasn't scoring runs or that the team wasn't happy, because I'm not on about all your press here. I'm on about the tabloid press.
When it goes to pot in a Ashes series at home, who goes harder at you, the English press or the Australian press?
I think it's a very close run.
Well, it is. When you first started, it wasn't like that here, but it's changed. Yeah. It's brutal, and you can feel the momentum going. It's like you're in quicksand, and you can't get it back.
Yeah.
And everywhere you turn, you take your kids to the park. Someone's got an opinion on how bad you're doing. Vice versa, if you're going well, it's great to ride.
Yeah.
But once it turns, sometimes it's hard to get the momentum back. And this was one of those occasions. We just couldn't get it back.
We always thought that our press were the most brutal in the world until Broady somehow got away with nicking it off your gloves to first slip at Trent Bridge, which is still one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen.
We'll get to that.
But the fact that one of your newspapers in Brisbane, I can't remember what it was called.
Courier Mail.
No, I'm not allowed to mention it. The fact that they did started painting him as a ghost and photoshopping him out of pictures. So England's all round it. I mean, they went so, and then the T-shirt saying Stuart Broad is a shit bloke and everything. And I don't know if you've heard this story, but this is gold. So we came out for the Ashes over here after that, and Broady was walking with his mum along the boardwalk or somewhere and stopped an Aussie to go, mate, do you know where the pub is? Or where this restaurant is? And this bloke had a Stuart Broad is a shit bloke T-shirt on and didn't know who Stuart Broad was. He goes, yeah, it's just down there, mate. And Broady's mum was like, well, that wasn't very nice.
Oh, my goodness. We will get to that moment. But back to the MCG in 2010 with Australian cricket in disarray, because you did a number on us at the SCG as well. The sprinkler.
Yes.
Talk us through the creation of that. Is this how you met your wife on a dance floor somewhere in England and that you're pulling out that move? Or?
So I get all the credit for this, but it was actually Paul Collingwood who came up with it. And it was during a warm-up game for the Ashes at South Australia. We played in Adelaide, and on the fourth day, so we had a really hard 3 days, but we were due to have to bowl all day on the fourth day and bowl them out to win the game or peter out into a draw. And the weather forecast had been for rain. And we're English, so we always look at weather forecasts. If there's a chance of rain in county cricket, 1% chance you will go out. And so it's not very professional, and I'll hold my hands up, but we all went out. We went to the restaurant, I had a few bottles of Penfolds and thought, this is great. The pound to the dollar was awesome back then. And we carried on, and everyone got plastered. Turned up the next day, and it's like 35 degrees, and I was going, oh, shit, what have we done? 2 balls into the day, Broady's bowling, and out of nowhere, this cloud appears and just dumps all over. Before we've got off the field, it's already a puddle. It was one of those Adelaide storms. And so the 11 most disillusioned cricketers in the world are suddenly pumped full of life and very excited. Get back in the change room. We know this game off. This is amazing. And someone just put the stereo on, and everyone was doing one by one. Organic was coming up with a stupid dance move. And Collie went, oh, what about that last night in the nightclub about 4 o'clock doing that sprinkler? And he started doing it. And just as he said it, Andy Flower walked in and goes, what fucking time did you say? Oh no. And so on the back of that, it became, and I had a tour diary that was on an internet sensation at the time. And I did, and so I went around getting everyone to do this. And then when we won, someone said, look, you've got to go and do it for the Barmy Army. But yeah, I get a lot of shit about that, actually, about not being humble in victory. But it's a good move.
That's the price of victory. That you get to enjoy those moments, and those little moments on tour, especially being away so long, and knowing the backstory now. That's what brings teams together. Those little moments, you bring the crowd into the game, and all of a sudden momentum starts, and you create that environment on tour. Because Australia can be a horrible place to tour for anyone. But the crowds. We love our crowds, but they're as ruthless to you guys as anyone, aren't they?
They are. But my favourite sprinkler, actually, I didn't know this, but someone said it. You know, GIFs on your phone. If you put in Graeme Swann sprinkler, this GIF comes up, and it's after Sydney. And so that for me was a bigger win than anything, because we've already won the Ashes. But, we definitely don't want to draw this series. We have to win that last test. And Sydney, everything went right, and we dominated a game where England. It just everything went right. And we were so drunk on the field afterwards, because we all went out and sat by the square and just drank and went round, and everyone mentioned their favourite part of the tour and everything. It was brilliant. It was one of those moments I'll never forget. And then after that, someone from the BBC said, you have to do a quick sprinkler for us. And I was on one knee and I can barely stand up. And on the video, I've watched it. I can't remember doing it. At first I thought it was Jimmy and not me. I'm looking and I'm absolutely blitzed. And it's just, I mean, you shouldn't celebrate being in that state. But it was just that was one of my favourite memories of my whole life, let alone cricket.
So we're at the midpoint now of basically 20 tests in 4 years between the two nations because there's a quirk in the schedule, home and away. We'll get back to England now.
Get back to that.
2013, an all-time classic. Ashton Agar. I remember clearly sitting at home going, "This is crap." This first innings of Australia, and then this kid comes out and he's not supposed to do this. No way in the world.
I know.
He wasn't chosen for this, but he bashes 98, puts on 163 with Phil Hughes. Until you bastard, chime in with the wicket. And
well, I
the
had
kid,
to catch
it would have been the greatest century in the history of Australian Test cricket.
It would have done. And then Brody got nicked off by him and didn't walk. But no one ever says that he was stumped on 25 and not given out, do they?
Did that happen?
Not that I hold that. Not that really burns into
Was he out?
Because it was a lost wicket. Yeah, it was out. It was Matt Pryce's screensaver for 3 years to show how bad how bad DRS was. No, that was a phenomenal knock.
Yeah.
That was a strange test match. I mean, the two things I remember, obviously that Agar nearly getting 100, and then we almost lost the game out of nowhere. We had, but then right at the end, so it's about 8 to win, and we went off for lunch on the last day, and I think you only needed about 20 to win or something, but one wicket. It was like so on a knife edge, and normally you carry on playing. I think we'd done extra half hour or whatever, but we had to go off for lunch. That is the most nervous 40 minutes of my life in that change room.
Yeah.
Like we were genuinely shitting ourselves thinking, oh my God, we can't lose this game. Having seemingly dominated it for so long. And then Aussies have been on top. And I don't know how you saw it from your end, but we thought we have to win. There's no way we can't win this game.
Well, the start of the test match was bizarre for me. This whole test match, the lead up, we did an Australian A tour to Scotland and Ireland. So we'll get into that later, actually, over a beer. But that was the best Australian A tour I've ever had.
Golf tour or cricket tour?
We'll get
Scotland and Ireland, yeah. I can tell you it was not a cricket tour. It was a drinking tour.
But I was captain that tour. He had Fawad Ahmed, Nathan Lyon, who's just come on the scene, was bowling really well, and Ashton Agar. And after every game, they'd say, how'd the spinners go? I said, Fawad, he's finding it hard. Agar's still developing. Lyon's class. And the answer back was, Agar's going well. And I'm thinking, that's weird. Next game, we played the same. How the spinners, same thing. Agar bowled really well today. Had them going.
Did he?
Really? And I'm starting to get this sort of, hang on a minute. Ashton Agar's about to play this first test match. And we left Nathan Lyon out. We dropped our coach 2 weeks before that the game started too. Mickey Arthur was sacked.
Yeah, and Darren Lehman comes in.
Darren Lehman came in. So it was a lot going on. But I remember talking to the English players about Agar. Man, we didn't know he could do that. And I'm sitting there going, well, we don't know him either. we had no idea that Ashton Agar could bat.
Yeah.
No idea. But I remember the last wicket, and I got a little inside edge off Anderson, and I could hear behind me Pryor and Cook debating whether to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Cookie's going, nah, Pryor's going to do it. And Jimmy said something to me, and he goes, you fucking hit that. I said, yeah, I know I hit it.
Yeah.
I said, the umpire hasn't given me. As soon as it went upstairs, I knew I was gone. But
cooked.
I remember Anderson giving it to me. He said, you hit it. I said, I know I hit it.
Yeah, well, that's what I remember. I was stood next to him, and you turned around and just said, no. Sort of hope I get away with it. But as soon as that was, thank God for that. And then it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But do you remember Ian Bell at Sydney on the last tour had got the biggest nick I've ever seen. Hotspot hadn't picked it up somehow. The ball moved 2 inches.
Yeah.
And he'd stood there and he'd got away with it. So we think, what if that happens now?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's horrific. But
Great
test match.
Take us through the Stuart Broad situation with not walking. Have you got a perspective? It has been talked about so much over the last 12 years.
I've got a massive perspective on this. I walked. I didn't have an issue with people not walking because it's ingrained. It's ingrained in Australia. My brother came to play grade cricket here in Newcastle when he was about 18. And he was told in his first game, you only walk if you miss the fucking bus, mate. And he came home, and he wasn't a walker, but he came home loving that, and he loved everything about it. I always said I always walk, but I was normally caught extra cover, so I was never really put under pressure to do it. But Broadie is definitely no. You don't. They don't walk, so we don't walk.
Yeah.
And I just remember that. And so when you look back at the game, we didn't realise at the time, but had that been given out, we would have set like 150 rather than 240 or whatever. Then it would have been a very different game. But we didn't realise that the whole floor, and it never seemed like the Australian team making a big deal of it. Obviously, if you're on the field at that point, you're going, "What the flying fuck has just happened there?" Because it was so blatantly out.
Yeah.
And even though it flicked your gloves, it was still a massive. It was very. Aleem Dahl's a good umpire, but no, you don't turn on the batsman out there. You become, how is he not giving that? How is he?
Yeah.
But it was the press. The press suddenly had this thing that Stuart Broad's a fucking cheat and this and that.
Corey
and we're
Mull.
ting, hang on. This is for not walking. Isn't that hasn't your nation been built its entire society on not walking when it's and other things. But we found it amazing. The backlash.
Yeah, it was an all-time classic. England got home by 14 runs. Lords, you absolutely pumped Australia, and it was a sign of a portent of things to come, or basically summed up the series, 347 runs. But I will point out, was that, with all your test wickets, was that the worst ball you've ever dismissed a batsman with, Chris Rogers?
Was that in that game, or was that not in the next series?
No, it was in
that one.
There wasn't a next series for you on English soil. Full toss.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Hit him on the hip.
Of course. Sorry, of course. I tell you what.
And he's colourblind.
That sums it up. I've buried that into my subconscious. The worst thing about that is that when I let go of that, this is at the start of when I was getting... So my elbow, when it went, it's nerve damage. So I can't feel two fingers anymore. My little finger and my ring finger on that hand. But my actual spinning fingers, when I bowled that, it felt perfect out of my hand. I swear. So I bowled it, and then when you let go of the ball, and then you get down, and I thought, where the fuck is it? And it was so far above my eye line, and it hit him. And I'll say that it looked absolutely dead in real time. It looked, and the umpire gave it. And I always like the story that it was David Warner at the non-strike end. He goes, "Nah, mate," because he wanted to keep the review for himself, because that fits in with the whole story. Like, the English hate David Warner, la-di-da. But apparently it was Uzi who went, "Nah, look pretty fucking good, mate." So it's the worst ball ever bowled at the home of cricket. It's the worst ball ever bowled in Test cricket, the worst shot ever played, and the worst decision it turned out, because it was missing leg stump by 6 inches. Altogether, I've been a part of the worst piece of cricket in Test history. In an Ashes game. Oh, my days. Yeah, I remember going back to my mark, and I think it was K. Pitt mid-on, laughing his head off. And I was thinking, that actually didn't feel that bad out, man. That was the start. From that moment on, I'd bowl probably 2 or 3 balls per spell where I had no idea where it was going.
Well,
and it got worse and worse.
Poor old Chrissy Rogers, who's colourblind, he lost the ball. Anyway, it happened. So England come to Australia with high hopes for the next Ashes series, which is quickly off the back of that series over in England. Graeme Swann, I'll sum it up this series for you in this perspective, that you've followed the lead of the great 20th century philosopher Kenny Rogers. You've got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. And in this series, you folded and got out of here.
I wish I had known when to fold him, because after the Oval Test in that summer, that should have been my last game of cricket.
Yeah.
Because that's when I bowled 17 overs of arm balls in the second innings, because I didn't know where it was going to land.
Wow.
Because my hand was that bad.
Well, why did you go to Australia?
Well, you know what? I put it down to the fact, I've just bowled a lot of overs in the series. Maybe it's just I'm tired. And honestly, I thought we'll get an easy win in Australia, because we'd won that series, and I thought, I can't see any difference between this two teams when we go out there. And so it was when I got to Australia, 'cause it's only about 8 weeks difference till we got out there, and we were warming up in Perth, and I was bowling the nets at Broadie, double bouncers, beamers, everything. And Broadie, I mean, if there's ever been someone I get out 10 times in the nets, it was Broadie. I love left-handers anyway, but Stuart with this big lunge. He'd never walk, obviously, if I next
No. Bash one to point, not out.
But I was that bad. And no one was noticing, because I was sort of a senior player. Like, no one even watches you train. You just left your own devices. And I was looking around, desperate for someone to go, what the fuck? And I went to Andy Flower and I said, this first game at Perth, and I made up a bullshit excuse. I went, I'd really like to play it, because I didn't get great rhythm last time we played here, and I'd like, because I didn't want to say I'm worried that I'm fucked here. Yeah. And he said, no. This game is for our 5 seam bowlers. It's a bowl-off. I went, oh shit, and so I didn't play, and I should have said at that point, look, mate, my hand is screwed, and I need to find out, and so I didn't play in that game. The fast bowlers had a bowl off and got pumped everywhere, trying to prove how quick they were. And I can't remember. I think it might have been Vogsy was just smacking it everywhere, going, Christ, this doesn't look good. Then we played Australia at Tasmania, and it was cold and wet, so I bowled about 5 overs of absolute horse shit. And at that point, I thought, something deep down inside me, because I've always been, it'll be all right on the night. Before the first test, and like realistically, I look back and what was I thinking? I should have just gone, look, I'm not, you cannot pick me. I don't know where the ball's going to go. And instead I thought it'll be fine. And then it went downhill very rapidly from there.
You guys didn't know this because you spoke earlier in the podcast about a target, and you guys identified this man here holding up an end for the quicks so they could rotate here in Australia, tough conditions. The plan was go after him without knowing how much trouble he was in, or was there a little inkling?
No, we didn't know Swanee was in trouble with his elbow. What we thought is we thought there was some unrest in the England camp and you get that feeling, but we weren't good enough to get in front of the game. And when you get in front of the game, you win a couple, all of a sudden change rooms become fractured. And we had a bit of an inkling that things weren't right from our point of view, but we couldn't get there. So we had a lot went into this first test at the Gabba. We went after Jonathan Trott in a couple of one-days after the Ashes with short balls to see how we'd react. And he reacted differently. We had a few things I've told you about when we went to the site because we noticed what he did with the crease and we tried to
mess up his mark.
I do it in county cricket. I do it every time. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I started putting chewing gum in there, standing in the spot, and sort of. But we did that in the one-days. And we got a reaction out of it. But what you had to remember is Trott averaged 90 against us. We actually couldn't get him. So we planned that. And we knew we had Mitchell Johnson coming back that had a point to prove.
Yeah.
And no one really knew where Mitch was at except us.
We didn't even know in Australia. As a fan, you look at it and go, this guy's so wayward. What's going on? And then they reimagined how they used him, just 4 over spells and just go nuts.
We went to India. We played a couple of one-days and the test players sort of stagnated how they're going to play. And Darren Lehman didn't go. And 2 games in, we ring and said, mate, get Jono home. I said, this is different pace.
Yeah.
I said, this is scary. And get him right for the Ashes, keep him away, and we'll go after the English. And I don't reckon you guys knew also what Johnson was doing. No one knew. I think it shocked everyone, even a lot of Australian supporters, but more so the English.
You know what? I think at the time, obviously, it wasn't very pleasant, but it's one of the great comeback stories.
Oh, mate.
Because from where he was in 2010, Mitch, and I didn't know Mitch at all. He's fiercely competitive on the field. You don't want to, he never said anything to me, but the fact he's bowling rockets, and for a 2 series, rockets that you didn't really know where it was going to go, but one's going to kill you and one's going to be a white. Yeah, and the Barmy Army got on his back. And that test match at Sydney where they sang all the way to the middle about his bowling his shite, whatever, and then he got out first ball and they sang all the way back. I've never felt sort of more sympathy towards an opponent at that point. It was brilliant. We were winning the game, but I was like, that's brutal. That really is brutal.
Yeah.
And during the home Ashes, he was never seemed as comfortable with the Duke's ball.
No, he wasn't.
But I remember that one-day series. I didn't play in the one-day series at the end of that summer, but I remember someone saying he's bowling absolute rockets out of nowhere. And then when we got to Australia, I think I read an article that he'd been away with Dennis Lilly or something, who just told him to stop thinking about it, run up and be almost like a Neanderthal, just like hurl rocks as fast as you can. And thinking, but you're absolutely right. By that point, Mitchell Johnson was not the person you worried about when you thought about the Australian team. And that first test in Brisbane, I still maintain I played him as well as anybody. My pair in that game should go down. but yeah, I mean, when I looked at Hads when I walked out to bat, and I always used to count the fielders down due to when was it 11-year-old I got run out by a third man I didn't know was there, so I always counted the fielders from that day onwards.
So it was a good pair. It was a pair that
hell of a pair.
Belonged on the front page, front innings, cover of Playboy.
I counted round and I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I remember, so the 11th would always be the wicket keeper, and I was saying 11. Jesus,
where's he?
and it was just because the Gabba was easily the quickest wicket. It was way quicker than Perth. And it was a bit spicy, and I think we'd bowled you out for not that many. You'd only got 250 or 240.
Or
yeah.
295.
Thanks to you. You came out and teed off.
94.
Because,
with Mitch.
Yeah. And so we're like, in the first innings of a test match, you're well in that test straight away. And then all of a sudden, I'm batting at 8 or 9, and I'm in after about 20 overs or something, seeming.
Yeah.
And this was, I'd always faced Mitchell Johnson after 25, 30 overs of bowling. We kept him in the field for a long time. And suddenly I was facing him after 5 or 6 overs.
Yeesh.
And this ball, it was still shiny. I can remember I'd never faced a shiny ball in the Ashes before. It'd always been old. And now, this is, I can see the Kookaburra smiling at me, laughing at me. Yeah, just flying past my nose, go, and yeah, he bowled rockets in that. I was caught third, I think Smudge had caught me at slip. And as I nicked it, one of my flat-footed flashes outside the off stump, I could have sat down, taken my boots off before it
I reckon
carried
you
it.
yelled, catch it.
Yeah.
It was funny, though, when Swanee came in, because our whole plan was to target him. Target him with the bat, but also if we got the opportunity for Mitch to break some bones, like to get into his fingers, do whatever you can to take him out of the game. And I remember you coming back, and it's funny you say that, you looked around and sort of went, I don't need this.
Holy fuck.
And just
The
went
best,
straight
the
off.
best one was second innings when I came out, and like the game was screwed then.
Yeah.
And but I'm on naught though. No one else would realise I'm on naught. I know I'm on a pair, but no one else does. And I don't think I probably had got a few pairs, but in my head I've never had one. And George Bailey was at short leg, and I just took my mouth and I went, "How you doing, mate?" And he went, "Fuck, he's bowling quick. Rather you than me, mate." I went, "You need to tell me that." And he bowled a couple of short ones. I was an excellent player of short pitch bowling, and I just let him go.
used
And
to
I
go
thought,
for it.
yeah, but I let these go. It was too quick to even go for. And I got caught short leg just trying to turn one off my hip, an inside edge, and it hit my thigh pad, and it ballooned in the air. And I remember thinking, I can't walk off. That hurt so much. That was like someone taking a baseball bat to my thigh pad. The dull thud. So I'm out in Ashes, and I've got to walk off, sort of head held high, take your helmet off, don't put your head down. And I had tears running down. Yeah, he was, so Mitch bowled rockets in that series, but the quickest I faced of him was at Adelaide in the second test on a slow pitch. And he
Was
hit
that
me
afternoon he went through you?
I can't remember when it was. But
The seven-fer? When,
I
it just all happened really
I didn't
quickly.
even know he got 7 for, to be honest, in that game. I remember Ryan Harris bowled quick in that match as well. But he hit me with a bumper in front of my face, and I didn't see it. I don't remember moving. It was the first ball since Shoaib Akhtar, because Shoaib is a different gravy.
Yeah.
And Sean Tate, who once hit me in the back.
How bad was it?
So when you got Tate, Akhtar, and then Mitch was then up with the pace with those two, who I never thought anyone would bowl as quick as those two. Mitch was suddenly doing it from a left arm angle. I had no idea what to do.
Yeah, so the Gabba was 381 runs margin for Australia. It was 281 runs at Adelaide Oval. It was just going off. And your last test, the whacker, Australia by 150 runs. So you're reducing the margins here. But at what point did you feel the best thing for me to do here is to go, as opposed to hanging on for the last two tests?
It was the day before Perth when I knew halfway through bowling in Adelaide, I didn't know where it was going, and I couldn't do anything. I was being bashed everywhere, and I couldn't put any spin on the ball, couldn't make it dip, didn't know where it was going to land, and I finished that game. Thought, well, I'm screwed here. And Cookie said to me, I went to Cookie, so he's one of my best mates as well, and he went, mate, there's stuff going on you don't know about, but I desperately need you I need my mates, I need support.
Was the change room just split, was it?
It was Kevin, but I didn't know this.
Yeah, okay.
Because Cookie was brilliant. He never actually, so all the fractures and everything in the change room, it was never like outward shouting and thinking in the
Kevin
change
was
room.
going after Alice there, was he?
Yeah, it was like a thing going on with Kevin, Andy, and Cookie, and I didn't know about this. And then he said, "I need you. I think you'll be okay. You won't do much at Perth because you're just a supporting role." And I'm like, and I said, "Yeah, of course I will." Actually, first innings at Perth, then bowled okay. It came out of my hand all right, and I thought, oh, maybe I could carry on. And then second innings, Shane Watson, who I always thought, I'm going to give Water a massive shout out here, was one of the most underrated players of spin.
Yeah.
Because he never let it hit his pad. His bat was a long way out, but he had a really good eye. And he had his struggles against Brody or whatever, but I thought he was a very good player. And when he decided to attack you, if you weren't bowling well, if you couldn't make it do it, you were in trouble. And I was resorted to bowling around the wicket that I hated doing, never enjoyed it. And the last 3 balls I bowled in Test cricket, I swear they've not come down yet. One of them, that missing Malaysian Airlines plane, I reckon the ball, no, that's probably bad taste. I'll take that back. You can cut that out. There will have been Qantas airplanes diverted from Perth because of how far Shea Watson hit me that last day. Yeah. I mean, it was a joke. Yeah. And the last ball, I think my last ball in Test cricket went for the biggest 6 ever. And I knew before that innings anyway, and that was like, well, that's absolutely guaranteed. I remember walking off and I sat in the shower and I was sat there just crying, thinking my fucking dream's gone here.
Yeah.
Well, but it was horrible, like having no feeling in your arm.
Yeah.
And knowing there's nothing you can do about it, and yet,
At least it was your body that let you down.
At least it was sunny.
Not your overall form. Graeme Swann, this chat has been awesome. I present you as one of the OGs of Willow Talk, a Willow Talk trucker hat for you to wear proudly wherever you are in the world.
Thank you very much. I will wear this with pride, and the check's on the inside, is it? Oh, no.
Cash. We haven't done with cash here.
Oh, we did cash only? Is it one of those?
Mate, we know you're coming out here. You can't claim anything.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks, mate.
I've loved it, boys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.